Okay, but how does drug dealing coincide with, Islam and
Well, no, because
paradise and
see,
so
no,
forth?
because see, that's what I'm saying is see, everyone conveniently forgets when the drugs got dropped off into the community, right? Now imagine this. I'm young. I'm like 12, 13 years old. $20 is $20. $20 to a 12-year-old,
A lot of money.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
Man, I had to sell six $20 rocks to get $20. That was a six-pack. So I turn in $100, I get 20. But I have to commit 6 felonies to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And so when you think about it, right, you think about standing on a corner, right, the same corner, year after year, day after day, month after month. Don't you think that the police know where we at, right? So as you start, it starts progressively getting more and more and more, right? You go to the airport, you're flying these things, you have the billboard, and you think the police know, right? But that sickness from the start, where you're thinking nobody is watching, you're thinking that you're getting away with it, you're thinking that it's only you, right? But you look at it and saying, me look at it now, not being in the game, I'm like, golly, he looks like he's about to get busted.
Yeah.
But when you're in that, you don't feel that way, Vlad. And that's the sickness part of it. And you have enough money to get out. You have enough money. You ask most guys that's in the game and you say, what's your plans? They says, oh, I'm getting some money. What you gonna do with it? Well, right now I'm trying to get to it. I want to get it first, and then they don't have a plan. You see? So I didn't have a plan for the $20. I just knew I needed $20, right? And then I knew, okay, well, I take the 20 and break it down and make 40 at night when the spot is closed, right? But this mathematics that we learned, this supply and demand that we learned, right, on the sidewalk translates in business. And I tell everyone, if you can just get out the game and see that you have something, and I'm talking about that something is at home, Vlad. You hear we keep having to tell my kids to be quiet. How many people come up here with their kids, Vlad?
Every so often.
Every so often?
Every so often,
yeah.
yeah.
I got my babies with me.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So that's what this thing with me is about, right? Is the generation to come after me. But I didn't always think like that. So we gotta be patient with the guys that are suffering that illness. It wasn't, they knew it. When they dropped off that shit, they said, we're gonna get them addicted to this. They're gonna start killing each other, right? They're not gonna know. They're gonna think that it's their problem and that we didn't cause the problem.
Yeah, but once you take a step back and see the way it really works, you start looking at how much you're buying the kilos for. Once you flip them, how small of a profit margin it is compared to the level of risk that you're taking with that. Let's just say you buy a kilo for 17 and, you flip it for 20. You got a $3,000 profit over something that'll give you 10 years in prison.
We don't look at that. We just
you see what I'm saying? Like, when you take a step back, and then, I calculated at one point, I started just going through a bunch of old interviews, and what I saw was all these drug kingpins, the Freeway Rickies, the convertible Berts, and so forth and so forth. It's about a 1-to-3 ratio. If you're on the street making a bunch of money, for every year you do that, you'll get about 3 years in prison. So if you have a 10-year run, you'll get 30 years in prison. And when you do the math, you'll realize you're better off with a 9-to-5 job and keeping your freedom.
So you don't think that they know about it? You don't think that this is systematic, or you don't think that it was dropped off with that intention that it was going to destroy the community?
I think that was part of it. And obviously, like the Iran-Contra thing, and the law enforcement was using drugs to fund wars overseas and everything else like that. I get it. But ultimately, I think the majority of the people that become the Big Meeches, the Freeway Rickies, they know what they're doing, but it's so much money and it's so easy and it matches their particular skill set that they go and do it anyways and they take the risk.
When Amigo come and meet up with you and he talking to you and you got a plan, you say, okay, I'm going to be doing this for a weekend. You know what I mean? I don't think he's interested. If you come to him and you say, well, hey, listen, I'm going to be just doing this for a month. Let's go on a run for a month. I think they get excited by the people that they feel like that's going to be doing it forever.
Yeah. And forever usually leads you to prison.
How many people come and do an interview?
Or a casket.
How many people come and do an interview and they learned before they went to jail?
Almost none.
That's why I'm here, lad. I'm here to say that shit got to stop, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, look, when Freeway Ricky went to prison, he couldn't read. This is someone who counted hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
Who could not read a book. He learned how to read in prison.
Yes.
And that's how he got out.
I met Freeway in the feds. I think we met in MDC, San Diego. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And what he said was interesting. He said that when he first got locked up and they gave him life, and he found out that his plug was the one that actually became an informant and put him in prison. For a while, he was really, really angry. And then one day he woke up and said, oh, snitching is part of drug dealing.
Yes.
Why am I mad at what usually happens? It's like me being mad at the sky is blue. The sky's still going to be blue. If I decide to go into a criminal enterprise, especially involving drugs, there is an extremely high chance that someone around me is going to tell on me. So let me stop dwelling on this anger over something that was going to happen regardless, and let me spend my energy trying to get myself out of here.
Absolutely.
And that's what he did. And I think that's the whole thing. Everyone likes to talk about snitches, and he's a snitch, he's got paperwork, they got paperwork. When the reality is, if you dig deep enough, most of these guys have cooperated.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of them, you just haven't dug up the paperwork, or there's a deal in place where their name isn't actually on the paperwork. You know what I'm saying? Where they're, giving information to get out without actually associating their name with it. And ultimately, this is how the system works. The federal system works on snitching. This is why they say they have a 98% conviction rate, because people cooperate, they take plea deals.
Right. That's why I was saying that.
It's not 98% in the courtroom.
Right.
It's not that at all.
Right.
People who decide to actually roll the dice and go to court, they win a good percentage of the time.
Yes.
Not every time, maybe let's say 30%. But 98% of the people actually just plead guilty. Meech and Southwest T took 30-year plea deals.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to have a release date. If they blew trial, they would get life without the possibility of parole. I remember Meech was talking about this.
So how does the big guy, now you've been studying this, so the big guy can take a plea deal on a case. Okay, so let me just understand it, because this is why I don't like the street shit, right? As I was exiting the streets, I was hearing about the get down first shit. So now the big guy says there will be nobody, everybody stay solid, right? Everybody stay solid.
Yeah.
Now, does the big guy take a plea and then leave the little guys? Or does the little guys take a plea and then leave the big guys? How does the plea shit work in determining who's snitching or not? Okay, if the big guy, if I'm on a RICO charge or conspiracy with this guy, right? And if the guy admits guilt, does he not saying that I'm guilty too?
Well, does he name you? If he admits his guilt, does he name you as well?
Does he have to name me if I'm under him in the organization?
Well, I mean, usually the feds want the top guys. Usually it goes the other way around. They try to get the little guys to tell on the big guys. So, for example, Ali Zoe Adam.
Right.
You've been watching this interview.
Right.
This is,
right.
one of the founders of the Zoe Pound. He had 115 people snitch on him.
Okay. Damn, that's a lot of people.
They wanted him.
Yes.
He had 142 properties. He
Right.
had Dairy Queens, Subways, laundromats.
Right.
He thought that he had insulated himself to the point where he shows enough legitimate businesses and properties. But over 100 people snitched on him.
Right.
And they found all the mortgage fraud paperwork, so he was charged with that. And they took all the properties, they took all the businesses. And he did 17 years in prison?
Yes. From watching the video.
Usually the guys at the top have no one to snitch on.
Right.
They got to take the plea deal if everyone below them snitches on them.
So how is it working with the Thug case? Does he still have other, because I just recently watched that. Does he have other co-defendants that are still in jail?
Yeah, well, there's, I believe, 2 more YSL co-defendants that are still finishing up the trial because they wouldn't take plea deals. But he's already pleaded out, so he's done. He's gotten time served, and he has a 15-year probation. So he's not allowed to associate with any gang members. He's not allowed to have any gang lyrics. He's not allowed to be in in Atlanta anymore. I think he's moved to LA. And I think there's some drug stuff that he's not allowed to do, whatever.
So the other 2 guys, they have nothing to do with Thug's case. They're on their own case.
I think it's part of the whole YSL case. But it was a RICO case, so there was all these people that got arrested. So for example, like his brother, Funk, he got arrested. They gave him a plea deal. He got caught with a gun, went back to jail for, I think, 5 years.
Yes.
So a lot of these guys get these long probations.
See, I'm old school. I thought that if, that we all got to stand tall, we all got to stand strong, and, if one gets acquitted, everyone gets acquitted. That's how I thought. I didn't know that some could take a plea, and then some take a plea, but nobody is telling, but you know what I mean? When you take
pleas, and that was the whole thing about Gunna was when he took his plea, a lot of people were upset because part of his plea was admitting that YSL was a criminal organization. So
even though
Thug took a plea as well that admitted to some of his gang affiliations and everything else.
So he didn't admit YSL was a organization.
I believe to a certain degree. Yeah.
See, that's why I said the game is vicious, man. The game is vicious. That's why I said I'm cool. I'm cool on it.
But once again, Thug, back to my original point, had a bunch of guys like YSL Woody around him that was out shooting people and everything else like that, and they're using YSL in their names. And they're tying him to something that he may have not even been involved in. Or maybe he had. I don't know. At this point, it kind of doesn't matter.
But the one thing that we know is that Thug didn't have to do it. He didn't have to. He was already a big star. Just like Dirt. He doesn't have to do it. Right?
Absolutely not.
You know what I mean? But it's those that you leave, quote unquote, leave behind. Right? And that's what I'm telling them now is you got to tell them. You got to tell them, dog, we can't do it. I'm too valuable to myself. I can't do it. I can't talk about it. We can't do it. Because if it's that serious, then go do it yourself. If it's that serious, go do it yourself. Right? But I think that a lot of times that you have the thugs of the world, you have the Dirks of the world doing their best to help guys. And sometimes those guys aren't appreciative, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, listen, you can't help people who don't want to help themselves. I've tried to help my friends, and you give them some money, and they blow through the money, and they want some more money. And no matter what you do, you can't get them into a business mind state because they've never been in a business mind state.
Right.
And then the first time you tell them no, then now it's a problem. And now you got an issue with this person because you told them no once out of 50 times that you said yes. And like I said, whenever I see these problems, Young Thug, Lil Durk, it's almost never the actual artist. It's almost never the actual person.
I don't have no problem telling them no. That's just like when I was young, when I was 12 years old, and I told old boy, I said, "Hey man, can you just give me 140 on it and let me have 40 on it?" He said no. It was a long way to get to where I'm at, Jack. You know what I'm saying? If no, it's no. I can't do it. You know what I mean? And I believe this. I believe that it should be more guys that come from non-traditional backgrounds like I do to have an opportunity to fight on this side. I think we deserve that. We deserve to have guys that'll say, oh, you know what? I'm going to play this game just like them. I'm going to beat them at that game.
Yeah.
Because this game over here been kicking our ass as black men, as a family, as a community. So I said, you know what? No, I'm gonna do this one. But
yeah.
I don't owe anything to the game. You know, I did my time.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't run off on the plug. I didn't do none of that shit. I was true to it. But I also wanted to be a representative of that you can walk away and you know what I mean, you can get out of that mindset.